Good morning from Bali. I'm Kat Kabira, and I was considering. I'm in the middle of running a level 1 energy course right now, and on our call last night, one of my students remarked, since she's been doing work with me, how she finds that she's just feeling more. And there's oftentimes an assumption that, oh, if I do energy work or if I do these certain practices, everything will be okay and maybe I'll be happy all the time. And what I've learned, and the invitation, to you, is to really be in our power. We're learning how to tolerate feeling and how to handle life. And understandably, we create certain coping mechanisms, leaving patterns, freezing patterns, disassociation, numbing out, defenses as a way to cope, especially when we're much younger and we're a lot more powerless. It's like, imagine being 3 or 4 years old and there's stuff going on and it's like, okay, like I don't really have the ability to physically leave. So how can I cope? How can I fragment my field? How can I hide certain parts of myself to protect them? How can I call other energies in to protect me? And so what we're left with, in our 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and onwards is parts of ourselves that are fragmented and aren't really here. And suddenly a real desire to be grounded and to be present, is one of our greatest powers, is really being fully here in present time. Without realizing it, we are multidimensional, both in a positive way and in a not helpful way, where parts of us will be unconsciously scattered in the past and in the future with different people. And there's a very big difference when our energy body is the way it is because we're conscious of it and we're choosing it, versus not. For example, I attract a lot of people who leave their bodies and astral travel quite a bit. And there's a very big difference between, like, I'm aware that I'm astral traveling and I'm conscious as to where I'm taking myself, versus I just don't want to be anywhere and I'm scared of many things. And so my coping mechanism is to kind of unconsciously fly everywhere. So one of the big foundations of my work is teaching you how to be here, to even recognize those pain patterns of and the beliefs and the memories of why we don't want to be here, why it doesn't feel safe, why it doesn't feel pleasurable, how to meet the old pain that's in our body and how to healthily process, without falling into story, which can create a lot of overwhelm and create more, how to ride the subtle energy wave of it. And I really akin my energy work to art. And I think energy work in general, when we allow ourselves to be the artist, which is stepping out of the more conditioned mind and when we really connect to our soul, we're stepping out of what we've been told to do and think and feel. And we begin to access the truth of our hearts, which really connects us also into the power of source. And suddenly there's a language is allowed that we don't have language for in our everyday regular language and our scientific language and our logical language, where it's like certain colors are allowed and certain rhythms are allowed. And suddenly there's a way that we can name and express when we've got gestures and movements and sounds and smells. And that reclaiming of that part of us that can feel so much. And another thing that came up in our call last night was, oh, I'm starting to discover the senses beyond the six. And that, I know even when I sing, I take music lessons or singing lessons. My favorite thing with the particular teacher I work with is that she and I both can see the music, coming towards one another, and I can like see the music in my body. And it's not just feeling, it's not just seeing, it's not just hearing. There's so much happening. And I tell her how when I even write songs, it's like I can taste the music. I'm like, I know it's the right, rhythm and chord structure because it tastes good. And so there's a way that we're kind of numb to our aliveness, and what we're looking for, or at least what I'm looking for, and what I offer to you is how can we be more alive? And being very, and it's kind of piggybacking on my last video, but backing on when there's been trauma, when there's been fear, when there's been overwhelm. Yes, we're gonna go into like a little small space, and we might even really control the space. But at some point, like we're going to want more. We're going to want to be alive. And that the danger of being numb is that we won't even realize that we could be smothering our own aliveness. And so there is such a power the moment you can start to feel, even if it's a little bit painful, which is momentary, you can start to know what your truth is. You can start to trust your own senses. We lose our power by thinking other people know more or better. Yes, it's great to ask opinions, do research, study, learn, but you need to have your inner authority. You need to have your inner authority. So I'll be moving my work a little bit for the next few months, several months, just bringing in the energetics of working with wanting to be here on this planet, wanting to be here in our body, and also our relationship with food, because so much of being willing to take in nourishment is our own contract with our own aliveness. And there's a very big difference when we start to micromanage our food, and we're micromanaging life, or when we don't allow ourselves the pleasure of food, or when we go into negative pleasure of food and don't really understand the relationship with healthy pleasure. So, a student asked me last year why our program was so successful, because we did like a 3-month intensive around eating disorders. And, one thing I said is that you really are going to have a breakthrough. That was a commitment that I made. And, she realized, despite the various therapies that she'd done, what the game changer was that we were working with embodiment and also with the subtle energetic system. And whether you binge eat or restrict your food or anorectic or binge and purge, over exercise, have body dysmorphia, take everything out on your body, or maybe like your eating patterns are normal, but you hate your body, and there's so many other things I can name. What we're learning, what I want you to learn is how to go underneath that. And it's like how to empower you to live in life. And it does start with feeling safe enough to feel, and then to tolerate the waves. And it's a very small process and slow, so you don't ever get overwhelmed, because in a way, any sort of eating restriction, disorder, binge eating is also like a way to protect ourselves. Like, I can't handle this, I'm overwhelmed, so I'm gonna just go back into the food world and manage it from that level, and kind of cut myself off in other ways and cut myself off from my truth. So the work that we do together is how to help you land back into your truth and to feel safe enough to feel it for yourself, to express it, and to live it. Now, there's much more that I can say, but this is an invitation right now that your ability to feel is one of your superpowers, and your ability to truly be in your body where you can feel all the powerful nuances. That's one of the most exquisite pleasures that we're given in our life. My brother had died suddenly on January 1st, 2012. And was in Guatemala at the time. And I flew up to Florida, where he was living, and I went to his family's house. And for those of you who've lost people, I mean, it's very personal, the grieving process. But this one in particular, his spirit was very close to me for a long time after he passed. And for that first few days in particular, because we're all sleeping in his house where he had passed, and his voice was in my ear quite a bit, where at first I thought I was a bit crazy. But it was very undeniable, the signs that I was given. And that's a whole different story. But one of the messages he gave me, I had woken up and it was right before the sun was rising. So it was even like maybe, I don't know, 5 a.m., maybe even earlier. And it was wintertime, Florida. So cold enough to walk outside. But, I put on these oversized slippers that I bought. They're Cookie Monster. And I had this like sweater wrapped around me because I owned no warm clothes. So I went to Walmart. It was the only place nearby to get clothes. And my little sister said that I looked like a drama teacher with my big earrings and my long sweater, and my oversized slippers. And I kind of shuffled around in the crispy grass and kind of feeling bewildered and by life and in pain. And at the same time, there was this aliveness, like everything was so alive. It was just like this awareness that, oh my God, like we're going to go. He went. The most important person in my life just went. And so there was something both like dying in me and becoming alive. And it's one of the most magical times, which sounds so strange to say. And his voice was in my ear and he said, you don't realize how lucky you are right now that you can really feel the crispy grasp against your feet, and that you can hear the sound of your feet against the grass. And you could even put your hand on a table and feel your fingers touching the wood. And just by hearing him say that, the reclaiming the power of feeling these simple senses and the magic there, it reminded me back when I started in 1997. I started as a Zen Buddhist meditation practitioner. So I just meditated a lot. And it was a way to get me back into present time, but also to appreciate the world. Like I would just walk around in awe of just colors and feeling, and not diluting the experience by the fears in my mind, the rushing of my mind, the traumas of my mind. Like there was a part of me that could really fall into present time and just really sense the magic. And I was living in Boston, so it was like a cityscape. And yet I would just stand in awe underneath these trees, watching the leaves coming down. Like, oh my God, like I will never see these colors again. I will admit, friends often thought that I was like on massive drugs because I was just so in awe. I wasn't. I actually went straight for a bit. But for me, it was like I'd been anorexic and so shut down that suddenly I was like waking up to, holy fuck, this world is so beautiful. So I felt like I had this major rebirth happen. And I don't know about you, but I've had a few, and I'm going to have some more. So my invitation to you is just, we've been shut down globally, and there's ways to just shut down and control and fear and fight. And it's like, let's fucking love, and let's be in our aliveness. And you can do this in cityscapes. You can do this in many places. Let's reclaim the power of feeling and our senses, because it's so worth being here. That we incarnated for a reason. It's so worth being here. So I'm sending you lots of love this morning. I'm going to go drink some coffee. Bye.